a lot of people kind of view like views is the best way to get your business to grow. And so all they're focused on is how do I get more and more people seeing what I make? When I think in reality, it's like your main core business is real estate. It's the back end. The views doesn't equal what business is coming in the back end. When sales becomes really difficult is when you prove nothing up front and you're trying to get somebody to commit without building any sort of trust. I think the more tools, the more resources, the more knowledge and support a home buyer has, the easier it is for them to win the bid against other home buyers.
Welcome back to our Successful Agent series, where we feature real estate professionals doing big things in real estate. In each episode, we cover the starting point of their real estate journey to really understand what it takes to build a real estate business from the ground floor to the penthouse. Today, we sit down with none other than Kyle Seagraves, who has built one of the largest inbound marketing lead gen funnel in the entire country. Kyle has a thriving loan origination business in all 50 states, helping tens of thousands of clients. And today he's going to share exactly how his YouTube channel helped him create this massive business. He's going to share his content strategy that he leverages for his YouTube channel, Win the House You Love, and how us real estate agents can do the exact same thing. So I really hope that you enjoyed listening to this successful real estate professional. Welcome back to our Successful Agent series. Today I have a very special guest for you. Today I have none other than the famous, the infamous Kyle Seagraves. Kyle, how the heck are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I hope I'm not infamous because I think that might be a bad thing.
Oh, well, that's how I meant it. So I stand by my statement. Kyle, dude, I have been just a fan just of you for years and years. And thankfully you reached out years and years ago to where we actually have seen each other grow from a YouTube perspective, from a business perspective. I reach out to you whenever I'm looking for different opinions, not only just from the real estate space, from a business perspective, but really even personal. So we were prior to going live, we were talking about some of the personal things, but Kyle, really what I want to have a conversation around in this particular session, in this particular agent series, is really more about you, what you're doing in your business that's so effective, and also where you see the business going. So let's just start at the beginning. How did you get into real estate?
I got into real estate on accident. So my dad has been a real estate broker for as long as I can remember. And I think it was in fourth grade, I did some sort of like career, those posters that you make, some like career thing about being an agent. And I have a picture of that. That's really embarrassing and I'll never show you. And then from then on, I hated the idea of ever being in real estate because of how much I've been around it. But then out of college, I think what a lot of people do when they kind of stumble into real estate it's this, I don't really know what this is, but there's a really easy barrier to entry. And I think in real estate, a lot of people can find this like, it's almost like a creative outlet because it mixes like business, mixes marketing, there's sales, there's operations, it all kind of blends together. And it was kind of this mix of like, I needed something to do. And also here was this job, this like container that I could actually kind of mold to fit what I wanted to do. And so once I realized it's not just this static thing, that inside of real estate, I can do a lot with video and a lot with like design and a lot with how I like to do operations and sales and marketing, and really tailor it to what I enjoy doing. I thought, okay, that sounds great. So my dad at that time started a mortgage brokerage, and I figured I don't know anything about it. Might as well figure it out as I go. And so I did that for a few years, just originating loans. And that was good, but it was, I feel like it was a little bit limiting in the sense that I learned through originating that I really enjoy the educational process or helping people understand like how mortgages work, how real estate works, because I got thrown into it. And, it's a little scary to think like me as a loan officer, and I'm sure there's tons of loan officers and realtors who do their first transaction and they have no idea what they're doing. They're just like finding their way along. And I realized like, if I am struggling this much to get education and I'm directly employed in this industry, that people who are also buying their first home are probably even further from understanding how this works. And I, through that, saw a lot of people who were just making decisions based on anecdotes they heard from other places or by what their uncle told them about real estate. And that's what I feel like has made me way more interested in trying to see how can I help people understand the complexity of real estate, And that's when I really started to push into YouTube as a medium to educate people who are looking to buy their first house, to get a mortgage, but were overwhelmed by the process. And that really is kind of, in a nutshell, the origin of going from no clue what I'm doing, jumping into originating, and then saying again, I have no clue what I'm doing. Neither do my clients, and trying to see what tools or resources can I give to help them feel empowered so they can make decisions that benefit them through buying the first house.
Well, speaking of not knowing what you're doing, talk to us about the first transaction that you had. I know that you're from the lending side, but I would almost venture to guess that would be even juicier. So how did your first transaction come about? What did that transaction look like? Because I really want to give folks a perspective of, the beginning, the origins. Like, as an example, for me, the audience at this point knows that I sold my first house for free. So it was a listing to a gentleman named Tom, and I offered to sell the house for free, which actually cost me money, obviously, with the marketing, with everything else, with not even factoring in time. And do I think I did a good job? Hell no, I don't. But it was experience, and he knew what he was getting because he obviously knew that I just got into the industry. So I'm curious to see. What can they expect? Exactly. So it's a learning experience for both of us. So I'm curious to see, what was your first transaction like?
My first transaction was terrible. I think with there are a good amount of people who are like loan officers or real estate agents, and they start more as an assistant. I did not start with that. I just jumped in, got licensed, had no idea what I was doing, which in hindsight probably wasn't the best thing. But it was a friend of mine who was looking to buy a house, because that's the only person who would ever trust me, which is fair considering what I'm about to tell you. So he worked on a military base as a civilian, but then his pay was from it's like education pay is basically what they give as like a salary. And me having no clue what that type of income looks like, I said, sure, you're absolutely qualified, ran them through the whole system. Turns out you can't use any of that education pay towards income. So I think maybe 15 days into the transaction is when it was probably earlier than that. Maybe 5 days into the transaction, I heard back from the underwriter who declined the loan, and they're like, yeah, you can't use any of this income. So that was a terrible experience. We did end up getting like his dad on as a co-signer, and it ended up working, but it very quickly cemented I have no idea what I'm doing. And really kind of instills in you that like fear motivated, I need to double check and triple check every single thing that I'm doing just to make sure. And so that wasn't a great experience. They were very gracious through it, and we made it work. But I feel like that taught me so much about how important it is to actually like spend extra time reading through guidelines, reading through experiences that other people, other loan officers have, other realtors have, because real estate is so complex. There's all these little details that can mess up through the way. And I think one perspective could just be like, I don't want to look at it, I'm just going to hope for the best. And the other perspective, which I think is more beneficial, is maybe I can actually take a deeper dive into some of this, to then make sure if I ever run into a situation in the future, maybe I already read about it, or maybe I already have a checklist about it. And so that's the approach I've taken now since that one bad transaction that I'm sure a lot of people run into in their first handful that they do.
Well, you mentioned something that we overlook. Maybe we overestimate our skills. Maybe I don't know what it is about as sales folks, but at the beginning, at least from the real estate perspective, from an agent perspective, a realtor perspective, I keep saying all these different things. So from a realtor perspective, you're brokerage shopping, just starting from there. You're brokerage shopping, you're looking for the best possible deal. And I don't blame newer agents. I was the same way. That's why I ended up going with the brokers that I went with at the beginning, because I got to keep everything, right? But with that comes a lack of information, lack of guidance, lack of support, lack of training, right? So you get what you pay for at the end of the day, where if we're not careful, we are really jeopardizing our clients' livelihood by some of the decisions that we as agents make. Mm-hmm. So we overestimate either our skills or something to that effect, but really undervalue the education, the guidance, the support going in. So I say that because oftentimes whenever I'm speaking with new agents, I'm bringing up these just basic questions of how do you plan to do X, what's your goal for Y, and all these other things. But very, very rarely does it ever come back to the support that they actually need. And when you're starting out, that's absolutely pivotal. Like with my example of me selling my friend's house for free, it really wasn't me who sold it. It was Charles, the agent that was mentoring me, and a friend to this day that helped me through the entire process. And we just undervalue that so much. So that's good. Well, hey, thanks for sharing your first transaction. I know it can get humbling, and you might not have thought about it for years and years and years. You might have tried to block that out. But let's hear about what's happening right now. Let's fast forward and really get into what you're focused to grow your real estate business at the present moment.
Yeah. At the present moment, I feel like I am trying to go back to basics a little bit. I think as growth happens, at least for me, it's been really easy to start getting distracted and say like, okay, well, I can do this cool thing over here and this cool thing. And I think as you grow, you get a little bit tired of the things you were doing, and you get exposed to more opportunities of things to do. And there's kind of this weird mix. I feel like in the very beginning, before you start, maybe it's like making content or it's your sales process or whatever it is. It seems like there's a million options. And then at some point, things start working when you just start to narrow them down into like a handful of things that you do over and over and over again. And that seems to work really well. And then it's like, as you grow, it kind of expands a little bit more. Now there's a million options again. And I have found myself, I think in the past, maybe 6 months to a year of, I'm noticing a little bit of like diluting my energy into a bunch of different places. And it was frustrating for a while because I was like, what am I doing wrong? And it was like, okay, what led to a lot of growth was when I consistently did things of like a few small things. For me, primarily, that was just like consistently turning out videos and resources for people, whether it was like a Google Doc, a Google Sheet, a whatever. When I was doing those things, everything was growing really well. And it's all of a sudden when I start kind of getting my hands into too many things is when the growth starts to slow down a little bit. And so that's what I'm trying to do is like recenter down onto focusing on what were those things that actually generated things in my business and trying to reduce everything else that hasn't led to that.
So it sounds like you put a few blinders on because your main business, correct me if I'm wrong, is through YouTube, correct?
Yep, correct.
Now, and that's been for years at this point. I mean, you get millions and millions of views, you get thousands of people reaching out to you every single month, which is just astronomical. So I can't even imagine what that internal process looks like. But when you're looking at opportunities now, how do you filter those out? Or are you really just now, not to simplify what you're doing, but when you say going back to the basics, are you referring to producing as many videos as possible that are in line with your general business, or what? Help me clarify that.
Yeah, I think for me, primarily, it's like I think as things have grown, it was easy for me to go from, okay, my only focus was I'm just giving as much information as I can possibly give out. And then as things grow, there's kind of this little bit of contraction of like, maybe I need to guard this thing, or I don't want to share this thing, or I don't want to give this away for free. And that I think led to so much growth. And so that's mainly what I'm seeing as the difference is like, oh, when I go back into that energy of all I want to do is try to identify the problems people are having and come up with the best solution for it, whether that's a video, a resource, a guide, whatever I can do to provide a solution for that problem is what led to a lot of growth. And I think it's mainly that. Does that kind of help clarify a little bit?
No, it does a lot. It does a lot. So because I know sometimes what drives business doesn't necessarily drive views. What have you seen in terms of your channel growth? Have you also seen that take an uptick as well as you've been focused more on the business side? Or Is it more of a discipline that you have to learn on? I know that this type of content is what the audience needs, but I also understand that it's not going to be the biggest driver of views, right? Because you have a formula where you could easily make a video and it hit 100,000 like that, but it might not be in line with what type of content you're trying to put out.
Yeah. It depends on like what type of business people want to have if they are doing YouTube, for instance. Because like you mentioned, there are so many things that you can do in real estate that aren't going to drive what would be called like a vanity metric. Like a vanity metric is like views. I can't, unfortunately, like Chase doesn't accept views. Like I can't cash them in. But I can make a video that has smaller amount of views because it might be a more niche topic, but it actually drives business into the back end. And I feel like that's something I've tried to focus on and I have been able to focus on really early on, where I think a lot of people kind of view like views is the best way to get your business to grow. And so all they're focused on is how do I get more and more people seeing what I make? When I think in reality, it's like your main core business is real estate. It's the back end. And the views doesn't equal what like business is coming in the back end. And the way I kind of think about it, this is a super simplistic view of YouTube, is that there's kind of two general types of content on YouTube. You have entertainment and you have education. So entertainment is going to be, I might turn on this video, even if it's about real estate, it might be about the real estate market. And like maybe I learned something, but there's this entertainment value of the news and the drama that I think a lot of people watch about things around the housing market. It really is a lot of drama. It's not really informing actual decisions that I'm making or that a lot of home buyers are making. Then you have education, which is purely like what is going to help inform somebody about a decision that they're making. Now, you have these two. Entertainment is always going to have way more views than an educational video is, because it's way more exciting to hear about the drama of the Fed and what's happening with interest rates than it is to hear about, does FHA allow you to have two loans at once, right? One is a video that a lot of people are going to watch and a lot of people will be interested in. And the other one is a lot more niche. And it's designed to only apply to people who want maybe two FHA loans in this instance. But what's interesting is you're going to have a lot more views on the entertainment one. But even from a business perspective, if we're just talking about YouTube, like let's say your revenue per thousand, like how much does an advertiser or YouTube pay for those videos, is a lot lower than it is for an educational video. So on that educational video, because someone has a higher purchase intent, advertisers will pay multiples more to be shown on an educational video than they would on an entertainment video. So I think people see these entertainment videos, or what I would view as like entertainment in the real estate world, and they're like, man, they must get so much business from this. When in reality, it's not. You kind of trade higher engagement, higher views for lower revenue and lower leads. On the other side, you can have lower views, but that includes higher revenue and higher leads because that actually solved a problem and is targeting people who are closer in the funnel to purchasing, right? Over here, we were just looking at rates. You could be anywhere in a purchasing funnel or in the purchasing stage. On this side, on the education side, I'm only looking for people who are actually close to making a decision, who actually need help. And my goal is to help them take that next step from, hey, I needed help with this one situation, and now I need to actually talk with a professional to get something like that to happen. So I kind of have been rambling, I think, and I forget what our original question was. So you may have to recenter me on that. But I think that's the kind of big thing around, like, you don't have to focus so much on the vanity metrics of what you're doing. If you're actually solving problems for people who are looking for solutions to their problem are going to end up finding you and will end up working with you. And I think you're going to see a higher business impact by focusing on that type of content.
No, that was not a ramble at all. That was a masterclass. So we can end now. I'm kidding. No. So really what you're highlighting is so important and so valuable for us as creators to understand, especially from the real estate agent side, is that's what the majority of the audience that's going to watch this is and happens to do. So one of the questions that I ask our agents that are, doing YouTube very actively is to ask themselves, how close is a viewer from calling me? So if you can't come up with a rational explanation or a timeline of a viewer calling you, then we probably shouldn't make that video, right? Just overall. And I'm not saying, hey, only address that niche that you're saying, but that question alone provides clarity on, does this video make sense for my channel? Does this make sense to profitability at the end of the day? Because you, more than most, know the amount of time it takes to research, the amount of time it takes to create a video, the edit, and all that other fun stuff. So I want to touch on something that you mentioned there towards the end on the, actually you touched on it at the beginning as well. So you're talking about the entertainment aspect and the education aspect. So let's talk about the education aspect, which is going to be a little bit more, it's going to be smaller. It's going to be more niched. Your channel, I know you get a ton of views. I know you get a ton of engagement. I know you get just a ton. It's a huge channel. But how are you able to so successfully get people into your CRM? Because from what I'm seeing and knowing a little bit about your business, I don't know all of it, but I know enough to know that your, let's call it view to lead ratio, is just bonkers. So how are you able to how are you able to get folks from being a viewer to becoming a lead? Is there something that you're doing that's just radically different from other creators out there from the real estate perspective and any other service industry?
Not that I can think of. I think really there's nothing special that I do. At least not that I can see. For me, I've always had this thought with with sales and marketing particularly, that it can feel a little uncomfortable to talk about your thing, to kind of pitch your thing. And I heard from somebody once who wasn't even in sales, as an author that I like. And he was kind of talking about that tension that happens when you're talking about the thing that, you have to offer to somebody. And he always just would say, instead of selling, just inform and invite. That's the only thing that you're doing. And it removes the pressure of, I'm trying to get you to do something. And that's not really what I want to do. My only goal is to say, hey, in this video, I'm trying to help you solve this one problem. That's the only thing I'm here to do. And then I want to inform you, this is what we do. Here's how I can help you. You're welcome to do that if you'd like. Here's the option. It's not more complicated than that. I know some people do these real intense sales psychology things. Unfortunately, I don't do that. I don't know if it works. Maybe it would be better if I did that, but it just seems to work really well to just be a real person on a video in the same way that you would to a friend of yours. You're not going to push them into some intense sales thing. You're not going to do this big marketing, crafted marketing pitch. You're just gonna be hey, this is what we do. And this is how it helps people. If you'd like to do it, here's a link to do it, and we would be happy to help. And that seems to work really well.
Crap, Kyle, I was hoping you would sell me a book or $1,000.
Oh yeah, no, you can get my book too.
Okay, no, that. I know we're kidding around with that, but what you just mentioned that's essentially the answer, at least in my book. That's something that oftentimes we put on our sales face, and I'm not saying we become overly attached to the whole, you better click this link. I'm telling you, it's going to go away. All this other, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I just feel the way that you deliver information, just one from the content side, is valuable in and of itself. And even if you didn't invite people to work with you, feel people would find a way to you, just from the sheer nature of wanting to give back. Yeah.
And I think if we were analyzing it more in a sales psychology perspective, I think it's much more of you're pre-framing with the value that you're delivering up front. I think the reason why you don't have to do some big complicated pitch is because if you're actually helping people overcome their problems over something like a video or a resource that you have, then why you're not giving them any reason to believe that you couldn't also help them with anything else that you have to offer. I think when sales becomes really difficult is when you prove nothing up front and you're trying to get somebody to commit without building any sort of trust. But if someone has seen, for instance, on my channel, I have over 300 videos, and they see how deep it is, and I hide, there's nothing that they can't find through those videos. It's a real deep dive into some of this stuff. In my mind, that builds enough trust where they can see oh, great. Well, he'll also be able to help me accomplish these things. And I think that's what makes that the call to action a lot easier. If you're doing a lot more cold prospecting, or maybe it's stuff on like Facebook or Instagram where you have a shorter amount of time, I think those call to actions, probably are a little bit harder to get conversion, because you're trying to see how can I build trust in that meantime up front. But on organic sites like, YouTube, or if you're making blogs, you're able to build that trust, I think, a lot easier, where people are able to understand who you are before they start committing to work with you.
That's such a good point. So take us back. Well, actually, it's an element of taking us back, but if you had to do it over again to get right back to where you are at the present time, let's focus in on YouTube, because again, that's where I consider you the just absolute wizard. To get, as mentioned at the beginning, I call you for a lot of YouTube advice and real estate advice as a whole and all that fun stuff. But if you had to redo it again and sprint back to where you are at the present moment, what would you change? Or is there something that you would change?
I think I would try to really focus on almost like it's valuable to see what other people are doing, but I also think it's really valuable to kind of insulate yourself and to only focus on like, here's who I am, here's what I like creating, and here's how I like helping people. And then hearing feedback from those people and adjusting from there. Because it was so easy for me, and it still is. You're doing your own thing, you're seeing what works, but then you go and you see somebody else's channel and you start to get, oh man, they're getting more views on this thing. Maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to switch it up to do this thing. And then you start losing yourself in the process. And there's this really weird thing, I think, about creating videos where the more authentic you are, I think the better your videos end up being, because people aren't just attracted to your editing style or the way your video looks. There's something about you. They want to work with you as a human being, because that's what we communicate over video, is you actually get to somewhat of a feel of who I am, the way I talk, how much I use my hands, that can't be communicated over any other medium. And so I think that when when I would go and look at other people's channels, it's so easy for me to doubt what I'm doing and what did work and what energizes me to create more. And so if I could start over again and apply even more insulation around like not seeing what everyone else is doing, to just focusing on like, what actually do I like? And can I push myself in ways that make it more fun to make more videos, or make it more educational, or help solve people's problems even better, I think would help fast track what I was doing a little bit more. Because so often I would see what other people were doing and I would try to emulate it, and it just didn't work, because it wasn't actually something that I enjoyed or actually like resonated with me, or the people who followed me.
It's such valuable advice, and something that I feel that I'm currently going through. And there's periods of time where, you're super jazzed about YouTube, and then you're not. So me presently, I'm kind of in the middle right now, just being completely candid at the moment. It's so easy to look outside as you're mentioning, and then either doubting what you're doing and, okay, well, maybe it's working for them. Maybe I can move over here just slightly, make something a little bit closer to what they've got going on. It's clearly working for them. And then you just end up not going through either door, right? So you're leaving both doors open. At the end of the day, it's just not going to work for you. So that's something I needed to hear personally, because that's something I'm going through right now. Awesome. So let's talk about a little bit on are you those agents that want to either work with, I know you're on the lending side. I know you have just a national referral program with agents all across the country, because as mentioned, you're getting millions of views and thousands of leads every single month. But how can agents work with you or build proximity to you? I know that you have those resources that you mentioned earlier. I'll be honest, I've purchased some of those and I may pass them off as my own. Just telling you right now. No, I don't pass them off as my own, but I do give them as resources for the clients that we work with here in the local production team, because they are just so valuable to you're informing, but you're also providing something that is useful for the audience. So there's a lot of resources, but the one that really stands out to me is the max price calculator, I believe is what it's called. But how can agents really either leverage some of the resources that you have that is working for your clients, and or how can they build proximity to you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the best resource I have is the max price calculator. And really all it tries to do is help people go through the question that everybody asks, like, how much can I afford? Like, how much is this actually going to cost? And it walks through that using the same formulas that loan officers use. And so even as a real estate agent, this is super valuable to walk through with your buyers, because, it can ease that conversation into, hey, why do I need a pre-approval? Starting to take a look at those numbers up front, and then maybe gauging that conversation with them and saying like, hey, here's what, let's run through these numbers generically. And then see what even is in that price range. How realistic is our home buying plan? Or do we use this tool to then see maybe our home buying plan needs to extend a little bit longer because we need to work on increasing income or paying down debt or building savings and things like that. And that tool is a really good jumping off point to just start to see things a little bit more in front of us instead of just like theoretical. I think especially as an agent, it can be helpful to talk about the numbers with clients in a way that's a little bit easier than just passing off and saying, well, just go talk to a lender. I don't want to deal with this. It allows you to have those conversations around like how important the monthly payment is to the neighborhood that they're looking in, right? This is going to decide how much they can actually afford is going to determine everything about their purchasing decision. The type of loan that they're using, how aggressive their offer can be, what location are they in, everything else that goes into determining what they're gonna purchase. So I have that available on my website. And they can use the code Kyle if they want to get a 20% discount, just KYLE. I don't know how many other ways you can spell Kyle, but that's probably the most helpful resource that you can use as an agent, and your buyers can use that as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's dig in here for a quick second. I know I have you for just a couple more minutes because you're pressed for time. So I want to be respectful of that. From that resource alone, even though you have a ton of others, but from that resource alone, for agents that are looking for applications, you've highlighted a few already, but just from a pure education standpoint, as agents, that is just invaluable. Mm-hmm. Learning, how the interest rate is impacting the payment per se, or how much it impacts. We know that it impacts obviously, but oftentimes our default answer is get a pre-approval, check with your lender, this, that, or the other, right? So we as agents, especially now with the industry, the headwinds that our profession has at the moment with the NAR lawsuit, with lower inventory, with just all that fun stuff, we need to be, let's just say, raise our real estate professionalism a little bit higher because we do have those headwinds. So from an education component, that is phenomenal, but also from a call to action perspective, I find it very valuable. In fact, in our recent series that I did with the local YouTube channel here, the DFW Homeowner, that is our call to action, right? So reaching out and us helping them from a professional analysis standpoint. And again, just telling you straight to your face, we get those calls and we just input that information straight on your calculator. So obviously I know that it works. Obviously I know that it's bringing in a massive amount of leads from having a call to action. So that's something I cannot endorse enough. But tell us, how can agents connect with you? Are you on the socials? Actually, I don't think at the beginning I mentioned your channel, but I think it'd be better if you verbalize your channel alone. I mean, yourself.
The channel is Win the House You Love, WIN. It has nothing to do with a raffle. You're not going to actually win a house. It's more in the context of, when you're looking to buy a house or home buyers looking to buy a house, they're up against everybody else. And I think the more tools, the more resources, the more knowledge and support a home buyer has, the easier it is for them to win the bid against other home buyers. So it's Win the House You Love. On Instagram, it's also Win the House You Love is my handle. I don't use Instagram a ton, but if anyone wants to email me as well, it's just Kyle@winthehouseyoulove.com. And I'd be happy to help.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for your time. I know that you're currently traveling, so the fact that you made time for me, just a pleasant pleb, we'll call that, just really means a lot to me. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Anytime.